Hello, this is David again from CarDoc Cornwall and Penryn. I hope you enjoy this video of a Kia Sorrento bumper repair. There's quite a big hole in this bumper, as I discovered, because when I first saw it, all the tape was on top. And as you can see, the plastic's damaged quite badly. It's ripped, cracked, torn and pretty much mutilated. Just to add to the carnage, there's been a previous repair there and the old filler's cracked and coming off. So the first thing I've got to do is to get started with getting the bumper back into shape, and that's done by heating and manipulating the plastic. I then scraped a lot of the loose filler off rather than sanding because it just came off in lumps. I got my mini grinder out to open up the cracks because it's important to get some new adhesive or plastic right into those cracks to ensure that they're going to be sealed and strong. I've now got a folded 80 grit abrasive in there to make sure that the edges of the plastic are well abraded so that I can get a good bond when I come to repair it. I can now sand the surface of the plastic to make sure that I've got again a good bond. There's no contamination in there that's going to prevent new plastic from sticking. In this case I'm actually going to weld the bumper as opposed to use any kind of glue. I'm also making sure that the back of the bumper is nice and clean and there's a good key there for the new plastic. Using a special type of soldering iron, I'm welding some stainless steel mesh right into the plastic. It's actually going down about 0.5 millimeter, and as I'm working it across, the plastic is melting around it. At the same time I'm using a plastic rod of the same polypropylene material and melting that into the stainless steel, so that's filling the gap. So the stainless steel is bridging the gap, the new plastic is filling the gap. This method does take time, but it really does produce an extremely strong connection, and it makes it much easier to get the final good finish on the bumper, as good as new. The excess plastic is sanded off, and it's important to see if there are any areas where you can see fresh plastic underneath, because filler won't stick to that. So I'm digging into those areas to try and abrade the fresh plastic, and the first coat of filler is really there just to see what sticks and what doesn't, because if there are any shiny bits, that filler won't stick and it comes out fairly easily, so you can then work that area in particular. I'm giving this a pretty aggressive sanding with 80 grit paper, the idea being to loosen off any filler that's not adhering properly. I found some spots where the plastic is still a bit shiny, so I'm now digging into those and making sure that they're abraded, ready for the next coat of filler. This coat of filler is now going to be sanded to create the correct shape for the bumper with the curves in the right place and so on. As I'm doing it, I'm aware that there's a little area at the top right coming up which is coming through, so that means I'm going to have to do some more work on filling and getting that area level. I've heated the bumper a little, and now I'm pushing that area down just to level it out a bit and applying a little bit more fine filler to the whole area, but in particular to that spot that I've just fixed. I'm sanding the fine filler now to prepare it for primer. I'm going to be using a 2-pack primer, which is a heavy juicy one, and ensure that any minor imperfections are going to be properly covered. I'm now getting ready to prepare it, cleaning and using a 1000 grit abrasive to prepare it for paint. While doing so, I noticed that there's still a slight depression there in that area, so I'm just filling that in, touching that in to complete the repair. Right, we've got the last bit of sanding, just titivating that area, and then I can finish it all off, make sure I'm happy with the way the filler's gone, and then give it a good clean, ready to be masked up, ready for the primer. That's a 320 grit disc on there, which is just sanding around the edges to make sure that there are no deep scratches left from earlier abrasives. So after the cleaning, then we can start doing the masking. Luckily I enjoy masking because it's important to get it right, otherwise you end up with paint appearing in places it shouldn't be. I'm going to use the contours of the bumper to hide the joins between where the new paint is coming on and the old paint. That's a piece of tape that's been folded, which provides for a soft edge, so that when I'm doing the priming there's no hard paint edge there that's going to cause a problem. This primer that goes on is like a liquid filler. It's tremendous stuff, and it does provide an absolutely brilliant base for the paint once it's sanded down. I initially use a block with some 240 grits abrasive on, just to make sure the area that I filled that needs to be level is actually level. That's then followed by 320 grit to take off the bulk of that primer, and then followed up by 400 grit, which gives it the right surface ready for paint. Also, what I'm doing there is removing some of the masking tape to make it ready for the paint and the lacquer to go on. This finishes off the most important part of the whole job, the preparation, because if this area isn't right, the paint job will fail. So now I'm cleaning, ready to apply the paint, have a quick dust round, and then the first coat of paint goes on. This is a fairly light coat just to cover the primer, then the air blower goes on it to dry it off. The second coat is also focused on the primer because I've got to make sure that can't be seen through the paint. and then the third coat blends out from the primed area into the adjoining panels, and the final coat being the drop coat or effect coat, which makes the metallic flakes sit correctly. More cleaning and dusting, and then we can get the first coat of lacquer on. After 5 minutes to tack off, the second coat is applied, a bit heavier, and this is the one that will be polished. The edges where the new lacquer joins the old are sprayed with a fade out spray, which blends the new lacquer into the old, and then once it's all dry, the whole area is sanded with 1500 fine sand, just to take off the orange peel and blend it into the existing so you can't see the join. Then I use a denim pad with a compound to polish in those areas, and again the whole idea is so you can't see the join, and in fact that is the case with this job as always. Final polish with a fine compound brings up the shine. Once all the masking was removed, we can have a good look at the job and see how well the repair has turned out. I hope you'll agree that the final result is what the customer would hope for. No evidence of the original damage and a factory finish. Thanks for watching.